And the first one is titled r/MaliciousCompliance, boss fired me during vacation, I own the copyright. So this happened in China years ago when I was still working in a manufacturing company that made high-end decorative displays and props for big shopping malls, theme parks, hotel lobbies and those giant festivals where people take photos in front of massive installations. Think of oversized lanterns, sculptures, animatronic dragons, simple mechanical ones, carved wooden arches, hand-painted backdrops, elaborate parade floats, festival gateways, that sort of thing. Our products were real, heavy and expensive. You could smell the resin in the workshop and hear grinders all day. I was a project designer and in-house art lead. I did not sit at a desk all day, I was in the workshop, up on scaffolds with the rest of the guys, painting, sanding, rigging and making stuff fit. I'm not using names because honestly I don't want to deal with messages from people asking if they know my old boss. I would just call him new boss because he was new to us even though he thought he knew everything. For some background, our company had grown on the back of these big seasonal display contracts. We did a lot of stuff for mall atriums and outdoor plazas, massive flower animals in spring, giant mooncakes and rabbit statues for mid-autumn, roaring lions and red arches for Lunar New Year, and random luxury pop-ups. It's a blend of carpentry, fiberglass, paint, mechanical rigging, and a lot of make it look amazing but safe stuff. So I had a contract that reflected that I was the guy who designed, scaled, and oversaw fabrication. I was not just drawing, I was also doing prototypes with my team, testing load bearing for frames, making paint swatches under different lighting. This stuff was photographed by newspapers, so quality mattered. I had built up a portfolio of designs that were known in the entire city. People would say, "That dragon at such and such plaza? That's OP's." I did not mind the company name getting the credit for it, but I also had a very explicit clause in my contract that I retained copyright to original designs created by me outside explicit work-for-hire scopes with specific licensing terms. This was actually standard in our line of work because we did a lot of one-off designs that clients licensed for a season or two. The company owned the physical pieces we made and the trademarks on the company brand. So I owned the design IP unless it was specific commissioned work for hire where the fee was higher and the contract explicitly said copyright would be assigned. The default was, I own the copyright, the company has the license to use it for the particular client and event, and reuse requires renegotiation. This protected both sides. I could keep my creative identity, the company didn't get sued because we had paperwork, for years it worked. Then ownership changed hands and the old boss retired. The new boss came from somewhere more corporate and definitely not from workshops. The first thing he did was slash budgets to increase margins and bring in his nephew for procurement, which is always a bad sign. That meant cheaper plywood, fewer screws, thinner steel, thinner fiberglass on shelves. I pushed back because cutting structural materials is not just saving, it is risking collapse. He thought I was being dramatic. The trigger for everything was a project we had been developing for a huge outdoor plaza near a busy business district. It was not just any display, it was a series of 12 massive zodiac animal sculptures that were meant to be modular, weather resistant and set on hidden steel frames anchored into concrete bases. Each animal had moving elements powered by simple motors. The ox turned its head slowly, the horse's tail swished, the rabbit's ears twitched, the dragon had a slow curling cloud mechanism with fog that drifted around. The design language was a blend of traditional paper-cut patterns and modern geometric planes. It had taken me months to perfect that visual style, sharp geometric surfaces but with traditional motifs carved through as negative space and backlit at night. The lighting plan alone was a whole spreadsheet of wattages, diffusion gels and access panels for maintenance. We had pitched this design to the plaza management the year before. They loved it and they licensed the set for a multi-season rollout. It was one of those anchor projects that would keep the workshop busy for half a year. The contract with the plaza explicitly listed the licensed designs by name and images tied to my authored design catalog with the company as manufacturer and installer under my license. I know this sounds technical, but it matters later. When the new boss arrived, he wanted to streamline the process. He tried to get me to sign a new contract with a company that would transfer all my copyrights to the company for so-called simplicity. The payment terms didn't change, no promotion, no additional compensation, just a sign here so legal is easier. I said no, because that's not how it works. I'm not stubborn for fun. That style I developed is my livelihood. I'm not handing over the crown jewels for free. He was annoyed but backed off at first. Things got tense as the Plaza project moved from prototype to full production. Procurement kept swapping materials for cheaper ones. Instead of marine-grade plywood for the internal structures, we got some mystery board that snapped differently under screw pressure. The steel frames came in with sloppy welds. I stopped and installed once because I saw a weld bead that looked like toothpaste, and I sent the piece back. I had workshop guys grumbling that if we put it up like that, the dragon's neck would sag in the rain. The new boss called me excessively cautious, and he liked to say, "Clients cannot see inside." I told him gravity doesn't care what the clients see. Meanwhile, I had booked a vacation before the project's final install phase. I needed it because I was close to burning out. My wife had been begging me to actually leave the city for once and visit her aunt in a coastal town. I submitted the vacation request months earlier. It was approved by the old boss, and the installed schedule had been planned around it. It had torque specs, anchor layout, step-by-step photos, an alternate anchor plan for spots where the Plaza's paving had known voids, and a highlighted note saying, "Don't alter designs or structural elements without written approval due to licensing and safety." I also emailed the new boss a reminder that any changes beyond the licensed designs would require my consent per our contract and the Plaza license. I CC'd the client contact at the Plaza, a paper trail. We left for the coast. The first day away, my phone blew up with messages from guys in the workshop. Procurement had delivered cheaper fasteners. They were using zinc-plated anchors instead of the stainless ones specified for outdoor weather near fountains. Someone had tried to swap out LED strips I'd spec'd for some no-name tape that turned magenta under the warm white filter. I sent messages begging the site lead to follow the binder. The lead fabricator replied privately that the boss told him to disregard the binder if it slowed install. "Just get it done, client cannot see inside." On day 3 of my vacation, I got a call from the new boss. He opened with, "I don't appreciate your tone in your emails." I had sent him a note saying the zinc anchors were unacceptable and I would not sign off on the install photos. He told me, "You're not here, we are doing it. This company owns everything you draw, don't forget that." I reminded him that that's not what the contract says, and he said, "We will see about that after this. Enjoy your trip." Click. Fine, I was trying to ignore it and enjoy the sea air. Then a colleague sent me a picture from the Plaza at night. My dragon was standing, but the lighting was not my plan. The cutout I had designed to be backlit with soft diffusion were instead lit with harsh spotlights that made it look like Swiss cheese. The fog was blasting too much, no control. The horse had a bald seam because someone skipped a filler layer, and worse, the steel base plates were visible because they had raised the animals on little shims rather than grind the pavers flush and tuck the plates under. I was furious, but I couldn't do much from that town. Next morning, I woke up to a message that Plaza's operations manager had sent a formal complaint. 2 of the animals were creaking. They could feel movement when people leaned on them for photos. The Plaza was threatening penalties if the company didn't fix it within 2 days. I called the site lead. He sounded stressed. "Boss said we cannot do rework billable hours. He told us to tighten what we can and tape the seams. We are behind already." Then the real punch. I got an email from HR saying I was being terminated for insubordination and obstructing production. They claimed I refused to support the installation and that my vacation had become job abandonment. The new boss CC'd half the world on that email, including the Plaza client. He wrote, "We will complete all design and install work under company copyright effective immediately." My wife saw me staring at my phone. She asked me what happened. I said I had been fired over email. Her aunt poured me tea and told me to take a deep breath before I did anything stupid, but this is where the malicious compliance starts. I did not reply in anger, but I just pulled up my contract, our design licenses with the Plaza, my change order emails, and the binder. I also pulled up the older messages where the new boss had insisted he could do it his way and that he did not need my consent. I forwarded my termination email to myself on a personal account and saved all attachments. Then I wrote one calm email to 2 groups, one to the Plaza's management and one to the new boss. Separate emails, obviously. The one to the Plaza referenced a license agreement that the company had a license to produce and install my designs under my approval for that specific project, that any modifications outside the agreed scope required my consent, and that due to my termination, effective immediately, my supervision and approval were not in effect anymore. I said, as the author and copyright holder of the designs in question, see Schedule X of our license, I cannot authorize further modifications or derivative works by the company without a new agreement. Please ensure safety. I'm available to discuss a solution. To the new boss, I replied simply, per your termination notice, my employment ends immediately. As noted in our existing agreements, my designs are licensed for use under specific conditions, including my approval of final aesthetic and structural details. As I am no longer your employee and did not approve recent changes, please cease further use of my copyrighted materials beyond the scope already delivered. Any ongoing use without authorization will be treated as infringement. That's it, no insults, no drama, just compliance with what he did. He fired me. Fine. He said they would complete everything as the company's property. Fine. I would comply with the legal reality here. They did not own my copyright, only a license tied to my role and approvals. If they wanted to keep using my designs after firing me, they would need a new license or risk breach. Then I turned off my phone for the rest of the day, walked with my wife along the beach, I slept like a baby, and the fallout started almost immediately. The Plaza's legal team contacted me asking to clarify whether their current installation was compliant with the license. I explained I had not approved these modifications and that I had concerns about the materials and anchoring, which I had documented. I was not trying to sabotage the project. I told them safety matters first and I'd be happy to provide my original install plan and an assessment of what had changed. I stated my hourly consulting rate because I was no longer an employee. They agreed. They hired me as an independent consultant for a few days to assess the site, because this was their plaza, and if anything toppled onto a child, it was their nightmare. So I cut my vacation short by a day and took a train back with my wife's blessing. The plaza's operation manager met me at dawn. He was relieved. The displays looked impressive at a distance, but up close you could hear the problems. A couple of statues made a faint rhythmic creak, which is the sound of stress you really don't want on something kids climb on for photos. The cable routing behind the rabbit was sloppy, visible through the cutouts if you looked, and the dragon's neck frame was under tension where someone had tried a workaround. We walked with a safety inspector. I pointed out each deviation from the approved plan, and we opened an access hatch. Where there were supposed to be stainless anchors, there were zinc-plated ones with visible white corrosion starting because the fountain mist travels on the wind. I showed them the load tables in my binder, and you should see the face of a plaza manager when you say, if someone grabs this and swings, the anchor could shear. He called his boss. The plaza sent a formal notice to the company that the install was non-compliant, that they had to halt public access and either fix under my original specifications or remove. They also said that due to my termination and the copyright issue, they would not accept any further design alterations from the company without my sign-off. The new boss sent me an angry text saying, "You're undermining us. This is a breach of your duty." I replied, "I have no duty. You terminated me. I'm complying with our legal agreements. Please direct further messages to my email." I was not just playing legal games here, I was also genuinely concerned about safety. 2 of the animals were borderline okay, but the others needed a rework. I drafted a report for the plaza with photos, annotations and a rework plan. It included a parts list, proper anchors, weld corrections and how to hide base plates. My consulting fee was peanuts compared to the project value, and they gladly paid because it was a drop in the bucket if I kept people safe and kept them out of the news. Now here's where the malicious compliance really bites the boss. Our original license agreement with the plaza had a penalty clause. If the installation was delayed due to the company's fault or non-compliance with approved design, the company paid a daily penalty. Also, if copyright issues prevented display or caused it to be covered or removed, there was an additional fee. It was written that way because big plazas don't want to be stuck with empty spaces during a major holiday season. With my email stating that I didn't authorize the modifications and was no longer supervising, the plaza had grounds to pause everything. They tarped over 3 of the animals and put up under-maintenance signs, which looked terrible on launch week. Traffic on social media turned mocking. People posted photos of the dragon with the tarp around its neck like a scarf. The plaza demanded immediate corrective action. The company tried to send a team to fix it overnight, using the same cheap materials. The plaza said no, unless I signed off. They asked me to be present. The new boss tried to call me, but I kept everything in writing. I told the plaza I would only sign off on corrective work that met the original spec, and I gave a list of acceptable suppliers. The new boss refused to buy the right anchors because his nephew's shop already delivered the other ones. There was a legit standoff, the penalty clock was ticking, and then came the part the new boss did not even anticipate. He had boasted to the plaza that my designs were the company's property. He had implied they could modify them however they wanted. The plaza's lawyer asked for proof. He sent them a new internal IP policy document that he made his staff sign after I was already employed for years. It was not my contract, and they saw right through it. The plaza informed him that their license named me as the copyright holder and that his claim conflicted with the license. They reminded him that any derivative works would be infringing if not approved by me. Meanwhile, our workshop guys, aka my old team, were calling me privately. They were unhappy because they had pride in their work and they knew the shortcuts made them look bad. I told them I would not badmouth them. I knew it was management forcing the cheapest path. A couple of them asked if they could help me consult privately if the plaza rehired me. I said I couldn't do that while they remained employed because I didn't want to put them in a difficult spot. I also reminded them to keep records for their own protection of any unsafe instructions. The company started bleeding money. Every day the displays remained partially covered. The plaza charged penalty fees. The installer team clocked overtime waiting for approvals that wouldn't come. The client's marketing team was furious because they had scheduled influencers and photographers. The tarps were in the background of someone's engagement shoot. The new boss tried a new tactic. He instructed his marketing person to remove my name from media materials and presented the designs as so-called classic company style. That backfired because local press were used to naming me. I had done interviews before about traditional motifs in modern displays. They started reaching out to me asking if I had left, and I kept my answers polite. I said, I'm no longer with the company, I'm working with the plaza to ensure safety and compliance. That is all I said, but it was enough. The company's owner's representative, above the new boss, flew in. He wanted to meet me to resolve the misunderstanding. I agreed to meet in a neutral place with a lawyer friend of mine present. This friend is not some big shot attorney, but he knows contracts and speaks with a calm that makes blustering managers sweat. At the meeting, the new boss immediately accused me of sabotaging the project. He waved a printed photo of the tarps and said I was holding the project hostage. My friend asked him to show where in my contract I gave up copyright or where I agreed to approve modifications I had not even supervised, but he couldn't. My friend then laid out the emails where the boss said they would do it their way, where I warned about anchors and the termination note that said my employment ended immediately. The owner's rep looked annoyed, not at me. I made a clean offer. I said I will license the designs for continued use this season and supervise the corrective work as an independent contractor at a fixed fee, provided the corrective work follows the spec, no substitution of materials, and I have a say in QC sign-off. I also want a small premium on the license fee to reflect that my designs were used without authorization for modifications. I was not gouging them, just making it clear that this is not free. And I want an apology in writing for the insubordination nonsense because the termination email got around. The new boss scoffed and said the company would build new designs without me. My friend smiled and asked how long it would take to develop 12 new designs, prototype them, and get client approval, all the while under penalty fees and with the plaza already contracted for my set. There was a silence. The owner's rep asked if there was any alternative. My friend shrugged. The rep said they needed a moment. They stepped outside. When they came back, the rep looked tired and said they agreed to the license renewal and my consulting conditions. The new boss was seething. I made one more condition. I would not work directly with the new boss. I wanted a single point of contact from the owner's side and direct access to the plaza. If any safety or spec instructions were overridden, I would stop immediately, and I also asked for an upfront installment on the license renewal. The rep agreed. Let me be clear, I did not demand my job back. I didn't want it. The boss had shown his hand, but I was happy to be paid well for my designs and to make sure the installation was not a hazard. The corrective work began that night. I walked aside with the plaza manager and a crew from the company that still respected me. We unbolted the base plate, swapped anchors, reinforced a couple of frames, and cleaned up cable runs. We rebalanced the dragon neck. We dimmed the lighting and added diffusion. We matched paint on that bald seam. It took 3 long nights. The plaza removed the tarp, soft-launched the display, and the social media mockery flipped to praise. People posted kids pointing at the rabbit's ears moving, couples taking selfies at the tiger with the backlit cutouts looking like stars. The plaza sent me a thank you note. The penalty clock stopped, but the company had already eaten a sum that, to be fair, hurt. Still, my compliance was not over yet. The plaza wanted to extend the display into the next season and possibly reuse some animals for another festival. Normally the company would have paid me a license extension fee through my employment, but not anymore. They needed a new license. I offered a proper multi-season license that allowed reuse with my oversight at a fee that reflected the actual value. And well, the owner's rep agreed again. He didn't involve the new boss in that negotiation. Now the company turned inward looking for someone to blame. The new boss tried to claim that procurement hadn't followed his instructions. The procurement guy, the nephew, threw the installer team under the bus, and the installer lead produced our chat logs showing the boss had explicitly told them to disregard my instructions and binder and to use the cheaper anchors. The workshop guys had saved everything. Backed up, I hugged that lead fabricator when he showed me. He said, "I remembered what you always told us. Write things down." The owner's rep started an internal review. It wasn't hard. The paper trail showed a pattern of decisions that ignored safety and licensing conditions. Then a new problem popped up. An influencer had taken a video during the TARP days that went viral. It had the plaza's name, the company's logo on a worker's vest, and a caption says, "When art becomes hazard," with a clip of someone pushing a statue and it wobbling. The company tried to take it down, it just made it grow. The plaza was chill about it after we fixed it, but marketing departments are not kind to people who cost them their biggest seasonal post. A week later, the company asked me if I would consider returning to my job as a creative director. I said no. I told them I was happy to continue as an independent designer with clear licenses. The owner's rep asked if I would at least help them write new internal standards, so this would not happen again. I wrote the document, QC checklists, approved materials list, protocol for changes, license compliance reminders. I sent it. They paid me for my time. I was firm that I wouldn't report it to the new boss. The rep said, "Understood." The end for the new boss came faster than expected. During the internal review, they found that he had been channeling most purchases through the nephew's shop, even when their quotes were higher than the market rate, and a couple of invoices were weird. Combined with the license screw-up and the penalties, it painted a picture of incompetence at best and self-dealing at worst. The owner's rep called me to let me know they had made a leadership change. Translation: the boss was fired, the nephew quietly disappeared from procurement. Someone asked me if I felt vindicated, and honestly, I felt relief. I care about the guys on the floor and about the work. I don't cheer when someone loses a job, but he created that situation and then swung a hammer at his own foot while telling everyone else to stand still. Also, he tried to take my work without paying, actions and consequences. You would think that is where the story ends, but the malicious compliance had one more ripple. A month later, a different mall contacted me directly. They had been planning to hire the company for a spring flower animal display. They asked if I was available to design it independently if they hired a separate fabricator. I said yes, with conditions. I would design, provide fabrication drawings, and license the designs either to them or to a manufacturer of my choosing. And they were fine with that. I recommended one of my old colleagues who had recently left the company and started a small workshop. He had always wanted to run his own place but didn't have the network. The mall ran a small comparison bid and picked his team. I worked with him to keep costs reasonable while using proper materials. The result was beautiful. Floral deer with delicate frames robust enough to handle toddlers, with lighting that didn't flicker under camera photos. The mall loved them. They signed a second season option immediately. Another plaza reached out after seeing those photos, and suddenly I had more work than I could do alone. The old company was not ruined, to be fair. They still had other accounts and they could make simple decorations, but in our industry, reputation matters. Cutting corners is a quick way to die. They realized they needed me more than I needed them, and they started treating my license like gold. The owner's rep told me, "We will not make that mistake again." I believe them. We worked together on a few more projects where I licensed designs to them and consulted on installs, and when they followed the spec, everything was fine. However, when they tried to do creative cost savings, I would say, no sign-off, and they didn't push. Why? Because the penalty pain was still fresh in their accounting department. And yeah guys, if you enjoy the malicious compliance stories, please don't forget to click the like and the hype button if you want to support me. And the next one is a fantastic malicious compliance story that is titled "Not Allowed to Take Vacation Days from Overtime All at Once or on Fridays? Got You." So, a few years back when I was working for my previous company as a commissioning engineer, about 60% of the year of field service, 40% office, I had accrued about 10 days of not yet planned overtime by the beginning of October. We were allowed to use that overtime as vacation days, which obviously made sense for me because I would have to pay a hefty amount of taxes on that money otherwise, and I didn't particularly need that money. So at some point, my then boss calls me to his office to tell me I should plan when I would take those days, with the requirement to not take them all at once and not on Fridays for the rest of the year. Since I'd already planned 3 weeks of vacation from vacation days during Christmas, he probably had some things in mind. His intention about the not everything at once part probably was to not have me missing for 5 weeks at once. The intention about the not on Fridays part was probably to not have me going home from any possible field trips every Tuesday evening. So I sat at my desk and started thinking about if I should use those days in a way of 2 times a full week of vacation or some extended weekends beginning after Wednesdays. Looking through my calendar which Wednesdays I would be best to use, I had a brilliant idea. Wednesdays, 10 weeks in a row, adding to that 3 weeks during Christmas, so starting the next week I did not go on any field trips for 3 months. Safe to say, my boss was not particularly happy, but he did not say a word since his requirements were fully met. And yeah guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. Please don't forget to leave me a comment if you want to support me, and I will see you again tomorrow.